Welcome to today's session. I'm Nicola Henderson. I'm the Heritage Specialist for XpoNorth, and I also work as the Innovation and Network Manager for Museums and Heritage Highland, which is a network organisation supporting museums and heritage organisations to innovate to be more sustainable. In this session, we'll be exploring the challenges and opportunities for museums when collaborating with tech companies and/or universities. But just before we launch today's session, I'd like to give a quick little bit of background to the Museum's Immersive Network and on XpoNorth Heritage, and on details on how you can get involved in today's session. XpoNorth Heritage was launched in February 2020 with the aim of working with museums and heritage organisations across the Highlands to help them develop their ideas for new innovations, projects and products that would help their organisation be more resilient. And as you'll notice from the date, within a few weeks of launching, the whole world had changed. And so our focus for our first year was very much on how we could help museums use digital to keep connected to their local audiences and volunteers, while capitalising on the opportunities for engaging a global audience would present. And if you'd like to see some of the successes that our Highland museums had in that field, please do go back and have a look at the Highland Museum Visual Showcase, where there are a series of interviews with some of the museums that excelled in being brave, with earning some income from their lecture series and education programmes, to putting on some world-class and world-leading online exhibitions, and including looking back at winning Art Fund's Museum of the Year for Gairloch Museum, in what provided some challenges but some great opportunities with the profile that provided for them as well. Over the last year, XpoNorth Heritage also teamed up with Cornwall Museums Partnership, who, as part of their WAVE project, were developing the idea for a network to support museums working with or thinking about working with immersive tech. The Museum's Immersive Network, commonly known as MIN, was formed in partnership with ourselves and in order to build bridges between tech businesses, museums and heritage sites. As I mentioned, MIN was developed as part of the WAVE, which stands for Augmented and Virtual Experiences project. And when Ellie speaks later as part of the session on the coastal TimeTripping project, I'm sure she'll give a bit more background on that project. One of the things I get asked when we're talking about MIN is what we mean by immersive tech and what that covers. And it covers quite a lot. It includes technologies such as virtual and augmented reality, holograms, chatbots, artificial intelligence, facial recognition, and lots more in what is a rapidly developing field. The network was established to promote and share best practice, to keep on top of those new developments, to promote skills development opportunities, and to explore potential collaborations with immersive technology and museums. We believe that immersive technology offers the potential to interpret collections and share stories in new, accessible and interesting ways for museums and heritage sites across the country. And we hope that MIN will support the establishment of immersive technology more broadly within the sector and help to boost confidence with museums in working with tech businesses to create new experiences for their communities. As we emerge from the pandemic, museums of all sizes are adapting to new hybrid ways of working, and several important questions are being asked, like, how do we build on the new audiences, the new digital audiences we have built over the past year? Or what is the potential for tech to help us tell our stories in new ways and to new audiences? How can we maintain and grow and improve our physical experience while embracing life online when our capacity is already overstretched? And in particular, when it comes to the opportunities immersive tech present in terms of broadening and deepening connections with our stories and collections, museums and heritage organisations are going to need to collaborate. And on the flip side, the demand for heritage and history content over the last year has grown exponentially, and we're seeing more tech companies coming into the fore, hungry for the content that our museums and heritage sites home and care for. And therefore ensuring that a partnership of equals will benefit all, most especially the audience, then getting that partnership right for the outset is so important. So I'm delighted that we have 3 inspiring projects to present today. The Ray Harryhausen Titan of Cinema experience, which is a collaboration between the National Gallery of Scotland, Playdead and Smartify, Curators with Mrs. Smith's Cottage, and Coastal TimeTripping, which is a collaboration between museums in Cornwall and the University of Falmouth. Over the next couple of hours, each partnership will present their project, both looking at that work and hopefully inspiring you to create new ideas for how you could use immersive tech to tell stories within your setting, but also discussing how the partnership came about, how it worked, and any challenges they came up against and how they overcame them. After that, Amy Shakespeare, who is the Innovation Manager at Cornwall Museums Partnership, will chair a panel discussion with all of today's speakers, and that is when we want you to get involved in the discussion. So please do put any questions you have in the Q&A, and we'll pick up with those within the panel discussion area, and we would really like to hear from you today. That's probably enough warbling on from me. So if everyone's ready, I'd like to welcome Anna Lowe, co-founder and director of partnerships at Smartify, Kevin McCrae, creative director and founder of Playdead, and Philip Hunt, the digital content publisher and analyst at the National Gallery of Scotland, to the stage to talk to us in this first session. Thanks, Anna.
Hi, Nicola. I can't see Phil and Kev yet. I think there they are. Hello. Great. I'm just going to share my screen then, and just let me know if you can see that. Maybe a thumbs up, Phil. Can you see that okay? Great. Okay. Well, over to you then to open, Phil.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Phil Hunt, as a publisher and analyst at the National Gallery of Scotland, and also crucially for this, Chief Ray Harryhausen nerd at the National Galleries of Scotland. And just before we start, we're going to show a quick video that introduces the project to you.
The largest and the most wide-ranging exhibition on the work of Ray Harryhausen, the father of special effects, the National Galleries of Scotland worked with animation studio Playdead and mobile platform Smartify. Opening in October 2020, just before another UK lockdown, it was crucial that audiences at home could enjoy the exhibition. Our goal was to reanimate the original models and sketches of Ray Harryhausen to provide an immersive and interactive experience for audiences. We started with the animations, which had to be wholly authentic and respectful to the original artworks. Playdead received special permission from the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation to take 3D scans of Ray's original models. These were then animated with authentic character movements and made into looping sequences with the stop frame look they once had. Even the detail on the textures were from the actual physical models used within the film. The animations were used as projections within the physical exhibition itself, but for the digital exhibition, we wanted to go even further, translating them into 3D augmented reality. We transferred the skeleton from Jason and the Argonauts into the Smartify mobile app. When launched, it would swipe and jab at the audience before revealing details of the exhibition. The AR feature was also tied to an audio guide narrated by film director John Landis and an online gallery of images and archive material, much of which could not fit into the physical exhibition space. Audiences at home loved the experience, which included not only an AR animation, but a guide and detailed information about objects in the exhibition. Since October, the experience has been engaged with over 54,000 times. The show remains open until September 2021.
Hi, so that was a wee introduction and covers actually a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So I'll just get stuck in. The first thing to say that since that video was made, we have extended the run of the exhibition from September rather to February 2020. So there's still plenty of time for people to get down and see the show once things are opened up a little bit more. Collaboration has been at the core of this project since the very beginning, when we were contacted by the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation about 5 years ago to collaborate on an exhibition celebrating the centenary of stop-motion genius and all-round god of fantasy cinema, Ray Harryhausen. As a lifelong Ray Harryhausen fan, I was super keen that we take on this challenge. Harryhausen was rare, possibly unique among movie special effects creators, in that his creations were the reason audiences were drawn to his films. Nobody remembers Don Caffrey directed Jason and the Argonauts, or even in many cases who starred in it. But they remember Ray's creatures, Talos, the Harpies, the Hydra, and of course, those sword-fighting skeletons. Ray was an artist who oversaw the whole creation process from his imagination to the screen. He created the sketches, the storyboards, he built the models with some help from his dad, and he animated them and integrated them with live action sequences. And crucially, he kept everything. And I was not the only person who was mad about this stuff. The passion has been a key factor in all stages of the exhibition, and it's what got us to where we are today. Passion from us and passion from our collaborators. No one, of course, was more passionate than our first collaborators, the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation, who very generously gave us access to the artworks and materials in their huge collection. Possibly the highlight of my entire NGS career was that first visit to the Foundation store to see some of these film stars of my favourite childhood films in the flesh. And this was to be one of the most collaborative projects that we've ever undertaken, both in terms of external partnerships, but also internally too. Because of the nature of the show, we abandoned our usual curatorial-led model in favour of a cross-departmental project group, spanning our digital content team, curatorial and marketing departments. And we appointed a project manager, Lee Haldane, who was crucial to the development of the show, managing and coordinating work between ourselves and our partners. Following a period of audience research, it was clear that the audience for the show was going to be different from all our usual fine art exhibitions, with far greater potential to appeal to families as well as Harryhausen superfans like myself. Indeed, the exhibition already has attracted a much higher percentage of new and lapsed visitors than any of our other shows. And our vision for the show was that it should be immersive. Just as Ray immersed his audiences in fantasy film worlds, we wanted the visitor to be immersed in Ray's world. So we put out a tender for exhibition designers to help us realise our ambitious vision for the show. The brief was clear. We wanted something special. We wanted something that went far beyond our usual exhibitions. And the initial responses were, okay, but they didn't match our ambitions. So we ran the search, took in suggestions from colleagues across the sector and tried again. This time, the tender from Gibson Thornley stood out. It showed that they understood the ambition of the show, and they had some great ideas about how to bring the artefacts to life for our audience. They were also, crucially for our limited budget, pragmatic. And Gibson Thornley came to our first meeting having done their research and were able to hit the ground running and build on ideas that we generated across internal, cross-generational idea sessions. Together, we devised a model for the user's journey throughout the show and built on our user research and vision. As Harryhausen's journey began with a life-changing trip to see King Kong at Grauman's Chinese Theatre in his native LA, we wanted that film to be where the visitor's story started in the exhibition. So Gibson Thornley designed a movie set for this room with a partition based on the iconic Skull Island gates from Kong that you could see below. Behind the set, the artifice was exposed. Walking through the gateway, the visitor was moving from Ray the movie fan to Ray the budding animator, stepping behind the magician's curtain. Gibson Thornley also incorporated one of the very early ideas from those previous sessions by using one of the windows in the gallery to replicate another iconic scene from Kong, where animated King Kong himself peeks through the window at the visitors as they walk by. One of the challenges of the show was to explain Harryhausen's dynamation technique. Crucial to the success of his films, this technique involved filming live-action actors on location, miming actions as if the creatures were there with them, which as actors do today with green screen, more on that later. And Harryhausen then projected that footage frame by frame, as you can see in the diagram here that Harryhausen drew, and he set up his animation table in front of the screen so that he could animate the creatures to interact with the actors on the screen. And he used a glass mat to complete the effect by effectively sandwiching his animated creatures between a live-action foreground and a live-action background. To illustrate this, as you can see here, Gibson Thornley designed 3 large screens showing different layers of the process so that users could walk around the screens and see the effect in a cinematic way while showcasing Ray's excellent model animation. And in our Imagination to Life room, Gibson Thornley proposed bringing Ray's drawings to life by projecting drawings onto the table and have those drawings actually come to life through animation. And in the penultimate room of the exhibition, we have some of Ray's most iconic models, including the skeleton army from Jason the Argonauts. And one of the main themes of the show was always going to be scale. Harryhausen's models are rarely more than a foot high, but on the screen, as in the case of the bronze giant Talos from Jason the Argonauts, they can seem huge. So to reflect this, Gibson Thornley proposed lighting the models dramatically from below and casting huge shadows on the wall behind. This would be dramatic enough, but at any given moment, we wanted those shadows to begin to move. All these were great ideas, but we needed a creative and technically savvy partner to implement them. More tenders followed. This time they were almost all of an exceptionally high standard. And what won the day in the end? It was passion. Passion for the subject and a willingness not only to bring out these ideas to life, but to creatively enhance them as well. And this sounds like a cue to hand over to Kev, but just before I do, there was another hurdle we had to overcome. As a huge fan of Ray Harryhausen, I'd seen the Foundation store and seen the wealth of material that they had there. And it broke my heart to see that some of the objects and drawings that we simply didn't have room for in the exhibition space. And we had a whole gallery at our disposal. So we considered adding digital displays to the exhibition, but with hindsight, I'm very glad we didn't. As unknown to us, the pandemic was just about to hit and render such physical touchpoints redundant. We were already working with Smartify to enhance the digital engagement with our collection. And after a quick chat with Anna and Thanos, another Harryhausen fan at Smartify, it convinced us that Smartify offered the perfect solution here too. The objects on display were just the tip of the Harryhausen iceberg. And with Smartify, we were able to use those objects as jumping off points to digitally explore the rest of the iceberg that lay below the surface. Smartify shared with us the work that they'd done on the Clash exhibition at the Museum of London. We loved it, but we wanted to take it further. If there was a storyboard on the wall, we could show the user 5 of other storyboards that we didn't have room for. And if there was a beautiful key drawing, we had another 10 in the app. The app gave users the option to go as deep as they wanted, to explore behind the scenes stories, read details about Harryhausen's life and working methods, view extra images and film clips and audio. But a productive partnership built on passion doesn't stop there. And we're about to find out what happens when your collaborators collaborate with your collaborators. So over to Kev now on just how Playdead were able to help us deliver our vision and show for the show and expand our partnership with Smartify even further.
Thanks, Phil. That was fantastic. I just wanted to chat about representing the work, being respectful and authentic, being a passionate fan myself of Ray Harryhausen, how we sort of approached the visualizations and how they would sort of complement his artwork in the most authentic kind of way. But we also wanted to take the visitor on a journey through his life as well and sort of showcase his personal journey about how he learned these techniques, how he developed them, and then also complement the originals or sculptures and artwork that appeared throughout the exhibition as well. So collaborating with the entire team from National Galleries of Scotland, exhibition designers, AV contractors, lighting technicians, to really think about how to integrate the visuals and showcase them in the best light. We wanted to take the visitor through the different periods and reflect that, as I mentioned. And we did that by using mixed mediums as Harryhausen did, while also studying and referring to his original sort of animations from Jason and the Argonauts, from Clash of the Titans, and from Istaios Keelos, and all his different sort of mythical sort of and fantastic sort of creatures. We wanted to consider new fans as well as super fans like Phil. We wanted to basically invite people in, make it feel engaging and immersive. And we wanted everyone to come out of the exhibition talking about it and feeling good about themselves and wanting to share their sort of stories about the films. When I was a kid, Sinbad and Clash of the Titans was like an institution to me. It was on every Sunday afternoon, so it was fantastic. And then we moved on to work with Smartify on producing some of the AR content, which was the animated skeletons. So yeah, the first installation that we produced was the King Kong. It was the original 1933 King Kong there, sorry Anna. And we actually, this is actually the original King Kong from the 1933 film, which we used the exact same background and then sort of animated it in a 2D manner. We also worked collaboratively with the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation, which were fantastic and allowed us to 3D scan Ray's original models, rig them, and then sort of animate them and then project them back into the exhibition. So all those animations that you see are as authentic as they possibly can be. This one in particular, sorry Anna, if you go to the table, is 2D hand-drawn illustrative animation. So we were working with Ray's original sort of artwork, his sort of template before he would build the physical creatures, and we took his artwork and then we moved on and animated it. But we wanted to create a narrative and think about how the visitor would walk around this table, how they would interact with the animation, and how we would convey the best story in that sort of light with his original physical sort of models that were there. And so we planted these little seeds as well that some of the superfans would pick up on, like Medusa's head flying through the animation, and then it freezes and turns to stone. All the rest of the characters, the skeletons popping up through the ground, the Martian, which was never actually made into a feature film, but he actually did some stop frame animation tests. And so we wanted to be playful with that. And we actually referenced his original sort of test animation that he did. So everything that you see in that animation in terms of the way that the Martian turns its head is it relative to the original sort of animation, if that makes sense. The next one, the blockbuster room, which was fantastic, which was Jason and the Argonauts, was a real challenge because we'd never really animated a 7-headed creature before. So just thinking of the dynamics of how that would kind of work, but constantly referring back to the original film. And I remember having these conversations with Ray Harryhausen's daughter, just about the way that the creatures animated and just being fluid as possible. We're trying to give them that sort of stop frame look as well when we were animating them in 3D, and also concentrating on the texture, because the material that Harryhausen used to build his creatures was very important, because the way that he built them was very unique. And originally a lot of his models, his parents used to help him with, and so we wanted to just be as true to life as possible. So actually seeing the physical models was really sort of helpful in sort of translating that as well. So we wanted to go above and beyond and give the visitor as big a, as an authentic and reflective experience as possible. If you go to the next slide, Anna, in particular, the skeletons is probably one of his most famous creatures. And so again, when we spoke to the foundation, we asked them to provide us with photographs, high-res photographs of the textures that Ray had used for the skeletons, and also the textures that he had used for the shields and the designs for those. So if you go to the next slide, Anna, you'll be able to see here, it's quite dark, but there's actually Medusa's head on one of the shields and an octopus on the other shield. These are the actual designs that were used in the film and that Ray created himself. So to be able to use those textures and apply them to the 3D animation that was then projected into the exhibition alongside the models was just mind-blowing. It was just fantastic. I don't think it's ever been done before, so it was great. The final installation that we did was a green screen room. We wanted to basically take the visitor and actually put them into Ray Harryhausen's world. We thought about reconstructing some of the scenes from Jason and the Argonauts, but we wanted to feature all the creatures like Talos and the skeletons and the Hydra and the Harpies all in the same environment, which had never been done before. And so rather than try and recreate a scene, which would be incredibly difficult, we wanted to create a sort of mythical ancient Greek kind of world that included Mount Olympus, and actually put the visitor into that world through a green screen so they could see themselves projected onto a monitor, and then they could pretend to interact with some of the creatures. So the skeletons walk towards you and they're the same size as you, and they'll swing their swords and try and fight you. So we thought that as an end animation, as an end interaction piece was, would resonate with the visitor and leave a lasting impression. And then just on the final sort of image page here, you can see, and I think Phil, you touched on it, was just thinking about scale and thinking about the dynamics of, because especially with the 2D dynamation technique that he used to use, which was sandwiching planes or layers of footage together with his models, and we kind of wanted to convey that in this sort of installation as well. And so being able to see yourself in comparison to Talos, who's in the background of this ancient Greek world, really puts it into perspective and context. And then we were happy to sort of take those animations and work with Smartify and try and get that working within their app. And so I'll hand back over to Anna.
Mute. Thank you, Kev. Yeah, actually, I was going to show one video, but since Phil mentioned the Museum of London project, I'm just going to show that because I think it puts into context what we're talking about a little bit. So I'll just share a different screen for a second. I hope you can see that. So basically, Smartify is known for, well, image recognition technology. That's kind of what we are very well known for as an app. So basically being able to hold up your phone at an object in an exhibition, identify it, and then pull information into your phone. And as Phil was saying, we were already working with the National Galleries of Scotland because there was so much archive footage, there were so many extra videos and extra content they wanted to host, rather than sort of clutter the gallery space with this extra content. We thought it would be nice to just be able to kind of, you know, use the supercomputer that's in your pocket to actually access that information. And the other great thing about that is that you can then take it home with you and sort of dive down and dig a lot deeper into the information afterwards. And we find that the kind of average Smartify user really wants to look at the information afterwards so that they can really engage with the content on site when they're actually in the physical experience of a museum. So kind of in terms of the project itself, I'll just skip that now. Obviously, as you know, the pandemic happened, we realized that we still wanted to make this content available for people who wouldn't be able to go to the physical exhibition. So as well as having the kind of audio guide and all of some of the extra archive materials on the app, we also worked to develop a web app version so that people could just access it on a browser-based desktop site so that it would become even more accessible. And then we could also embed that back into the National Galleries of Scotland website. In terms of the AR kind of feature though, we just kind of, as Phil said, you know, my co-founder Thomas is also a huge Harryhausen fan and got very excited by the animations that Kev and the team were creating. So we thought it would be a nice idea to sort of embed those animations into the app experience so that people could actually, you know, if they're sitting at home, they can project the skeleton into their own, you know, room and fight with the skeleton. It's a little bit of a gimmick perhaps, but it's also a nice feature to sort of market the exhibition. And we tied that to a call to action to buy tickets to then go to the physical exhibition as well. Because you know, Kevin and the team had already sort of created those animations, and often with AR projects, that's actually the most sort of expensive part is the animating. So that was already done. So we knew it wouldn't be a sort of a huge extra cost for Smartify to then embed that. I think the most kind of complicated aspect was just making sure that it was aligned correctly so that it would sort of come out of the floor in the right place rather than just coming anywhere on the screen, because what we're used to doing is sort of recognizing artworks as you saw and then bringing up information without having to sort of position them specifically in a specific area of the screen. So that for us was the sort of most complicated bit, but it ended up working really nicely. And then just in terms of sort of that museum from home experience, in the video that was slightly outdated, so we've had kind of over 100,000 people engaging with that animation since it launched at the end of last year. And in terms of the on-site experience as well, 68% of audiences have said that having that mobile-based tour and extra information made the art more accessible. 70% of visitors said the experience was more engaging, and 73% said it helped with knowledge about the art on the show. So it does go to show that sort of having that extra layer of interpretation can really make a big difference in terms of giving audiences a kind of a fully immersive experience, but also having that extra information to take away as well. I think our time is up, so I'll leave it there and perhaps we can open it to questions.
Great, thank you so much, Anna, Phil and Kev. That was really interesting, and I loved hearing from Phil at the start about it sort of being almost a web of collaboration between you all and at every level of the project. And at the heart of it was sort of a shared passion and understanding of the kind of experience you wanted to develop. So yeah, we're looking for people to sort of submit questions and come back to you as part of the panel discussion later, but thank you for your time just now. And if next I could invite Lauren Livesey, who is the Partnerships Manager at Curators, and Emma Cooper, who's the Interactive Producer and Creative Business Leader, and Sally Bird, who's Learning and Development Officer from Mrs. Smith's Cottage. Hi.
Hello.
To you, and I look forward to hearing all about Curators. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen now. So usual thing of just give me a nod if you can't see it. So who can I see? Sally, can you give me a nod if you can see that? Brilliant, perfect, thanks very much. So hi everyone, my name's Lauren. I am the Partnerships Manager at Curators. I come from a museum background. I've been working with Emma and the team at Cooperative Innovations, who are the kind of parent company of Curators, for about 7 months at this point. But I come from a museum background, and I've worked in curatorial, I've worked in kind of front of house, I've worked in events, so I've got quite a wide-ranging background. But my role at Curators is to work alongside our partner organisations from the museum and heritage world, to really kind of bring their vision for what they want from a virtual tour to our developers and make sure we create something that is meeting the needs of everybody involved. But I'll hand over now to my colleague Emma to let her speak very briefly about her role in Curators.
Hello, I hope this works. Does it work? Awesome. I was having some technical problems earlier. So my name's Emma Cooper. I worked in interactive media for nearly 20 years, doing a range of things, predominantly game design and game development. Cooperative Innovations comes from a game development background. We are specifically an immersive technology studio, and we work really hard to bring people together. So all of our stuff tends to be collaborative and about a shared social experience. We came up with Curators at the beginning of last year, off the back of the start of the pandemic. We've had an idea for it, a product like this, for a long time, but the pandemic kind of kicked it off. So should we talk about what Curators is? So it's an off-site visitor experience. Up until early 2020, I didn't know what an off-site or an on-site experience was. Part of the collaboration between me and Lauren is her translation and helping me to understand terminology and figure out our way around this new sector for us. Curators offers a social visitor experience, either in immersive technology on a desktop or on your phone. We spent the last 12 months developing a prototype, and we got to the end of last year and we put out a call for partnerships, and one of the partners that got in touch with us was Sally from Mrs. Smith's Cottage. I think we'll talk about that in a bit later. The best way to describe the experience, I think it's on the next slide. I'm not navigating the slides. Here we are. So effectively, we create a digital space, and that digital space can be anything. So it can either be a recreation of your museum, or it can be a recreation of something more contextual and more abstract. So something like the Ray Harryhausen exhibition, I think it worked really nicely. But we can bring lots of people into that space, regardless of where they are. And the other thing we can do is we can put an expert into that space. So at the moment, website and a lot of website and digital experiences are written and established content. So you have objects and you have metadata that are associated with those objects. And you don't quite get the same experience as you do if you go for a live tour. What you get when you go for a live tour is you get to talk to that expert and you get to ask them the questions, and you get a one-to-one. And sometimes the stories that come out of that interaction are a lot more interesting and exciting. And that's what we're trying to capture with Curators. I think the next slide is a video, which possibly will help explain it more.
Platform for virtual tours for anyone. And hi, I'm Lauren. Let me introduce you to Curators, a social platform for virtual tours for anyone, anywhere. Curators is currently in development and created by Cooperative Innovations, who seek to find new and innovative ways to experience museums and galleries. We intend for curators to be accessed in a number of ways, such as VR headsets, tablets, your computer at home, or even your phone. You might experience a small part of the collection, a single room, or a recreation of an entire museum. Curators allows you to have access to content that might not otherwise be on display. So what makes Curators different from any other 360 or virtual tour that you might have seen online? One of the biggest differences with Curators is the social aspect. You can inhabit a virtual space whenever you choose, with whoever you choose. We understand that it's the interactive social experience of going to a museum that makes it memorable. There are a number of ways that you can access and navigate inside Curators: a recorded guided tour, a live guided tour, and a self-guided tour. With a self-guided tour, you can navigate your way around at your own pace with friends or family. You can start it whenever you like and gravitate towards the items that most interest you, assessing them up close from a variety of angles, looking at written interpretation, audio or video recordings, which can all be found in the space. You can book yourself onto a live guided tour at a set time where a guide will join you alongside your friends and family. The guide can answer questions as you go on the tour, which provides the highest level of interactivity and information. This is a new platform and we are testing it in every direction. Want to explore the Curators platform? We would love to talk with you.
So to answer that question, I saw pop up, yes. The position that we're in at the moment is we have a what is called in the tech world an MVP, a demo, and then we're working with a number of partners. So the way we're approaching this is we have a container for content, and at the moment we filled it with content that we found that that we kind of bought from online stores, and what we really want now is to populate our platform with as much glorious content from the stories that are out in the world at the moment. We're working with, as well as Sally and Mrs. Smith's Cottage, we're working with Environment Scotland and National Trust for Scotland. We're working with Anne Frank Museum in the Netherlands and a number of other organisations to get their content, their existing 360 and 3D content on board. We're also working with an organisation in Norfolk, I think it's Norfolk, yeah, and the National Trust, with a group of young people, and they're helping us to curate a tour specially for us. So I think that just about covers it. The stage we're at now is we're actively collaborating. So unlike the example previous where the project's finished, that was my doorbell, of course that was. Instead of, we've not actively finished the project, we are actively collaborating with Sally. So we have started to bring the content onto our platform, and that's where we are at the moment.
So as Emma was saying, that's the thing that's really inspiring about a day like today, and hearing examples of ongoing and existing kind of technological and museum collaborations, because we are, as Emma said, at the very beginning of that journey and really looking for kind of models of best practice and to kind of continually improve and innovate on what we do. So it's really interesting for us to consider what's ahead. An important early partnership that was made within the organisation was the decision to bring in somebody with a museum's background to have a voice on the ground. Emma and the rest of the team, our co-founders Simon and Brian, have got decades of experience within immersive tech, but there was a kind of a conscious decision early on to bringing somebody who had a museum's voice, who could speak that language and who could hopefully one day learn the jargon of the tech world, so that there could be a real kind of dialogue that was happening at all times. And I was recruited in late 2020 for that express purpose. So my background in museums is quite wide and varied over the last decade, but I'm really here to represent back museum-centric concerns to a team of developers to be able to go, oh, that is really interesting from your perspective. I get that as a member of the tech world, as somebody who's developing and programming the app, but from a museum perspective, that might not work so well. So that is my role and what I do. As Emma mentioned, we are currently working with a number of organisations, the National Trust for Scotland and Historic Environment Scotland, on Charles Rennie Mackintosh's Hill House. The team there were doing extensive LiDAR scanning, object scanning, some really incredible work as part of an ongoing conservation project. And we've kind of been taking advantage of this incredible ongoing technological work that they have been doing. The building there is not easy to access physically for all visitors. So the real hope is that it will be able to, the work we do to bring this into the app is to share those rooms, those spaces, those collections and stories with people who might not physically be able to get just to Scotland and the building, but into the parts of the building that are more fragile. Also from a kind of perspective, the building itself is in some cases suffering from water ingress, so we're able to, from a disaster management standpoint, create a record of the building as it currently stands. We're also working, I've stopped moving on, there we go. We're working with Anne Frank House in the Netherlands, as Emma mentioned. They had an existing virtual tour of the Secret Annex, where Anne and her family were resident in the 40s, and we're working to bring this experience, and we're pretty much there bringing it onto curators so that you can bring multiple people into that space. At the moment, it's something that you experience in a solo capacity, but being able to bring people in, being able to share the experience of their curators, of their experts in a pre-recorded or live way to unite people from all over the globe in that environment is something that's really important and special, we think. So we're working on that. Where that's an image from inside the room that we're bringing on board at the moment. We're also working with Common Ground, who are part of Norfolk and Norwich festivals, and the National Trust East of England on their Peckover House building. We're working with young people on a creative artist-led project to create a virtual tour of aspects of that. We had our first day on the project yesterday, which was amazing, and that's all coming together really, really well. But the thing that we're really excited about and here to talk about with you today is the work we're doing with Mrs. Smith's Cottage in Lincolnshire. Beyond that, we're working with other organisations in the UK, Europe and further afield. But I'm going to bring Sally Bird into our conversation now to introduce herself and to talk a little bit further about what her role is at Mrs. Smith's Cottage, what interested her in the project, and just to hear more from her perspective. So can I bring you in here now, Sally?
Yes, yeah, thank you. So I'm Sally Bird. I'm the Learning and Development Officer at Mrs. Smith's Cottage in Navenby. We're run by North Kesteven District Council and have been going through a large Heritage Lottery Fund project, which sort of started in 2019 to restore the cottage and then reopen it for visitors. When I actually arrived on the Mrs. Smith's Cottage project, the cottage had no roof and the collection was sort of piled up in a storage unit. So we've come a long way since then. And I saw an advert for curators, I think either on Twitter or in a museum journal, somewhere like that. And this was sort of, I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, it was early in the pandemic, probably. And I was sat there tasked with, right, you're the learning officer now. We can't open. You haven't been open for 8 years. Create some content for us to put online. I was like, okay. And Curators sort of popped up and it looked like a fantastic way to bring a social experience in. So as part of the restoration project, we've created the Matterport model with the help of the University of Lincoln. We have a fantastic existing partnership with the University of Lincoln. They're just up the road from us. They've done conservation work. They run the department we're working with is a business called Lincoln Conservation, and they do conservation work, particularly around historic decorative interiors, which is where they first came into the project to look at all of our wallpaper. Mrs. Smith liked her wallpaper, bless her. So they came in for that, and then they sort of went, oh, we have some colleagues that do these 3D scans. And as we are a very difficult building to navigate. It's ladder access only upstairs with no ability to change that or make it easier for anyone. It was the perfect opportunity to increase our accessibility. And with this Matterport model, we were trying to use it online, but we found it not very social. And I was creating content for it, but never actually getting to speak to anyone. So when Curators popped up, it looked like an ideal opportunity for us to create sort of a more social environment to enjoy the cottage in, because it is a home. And for us, the social aspect of it was really, really important. I found that as we do a lot of partnership working, being an incredibly small team, there's myself, my colleague Jade, and then I have 2 other colleagues in the council that help run the tourism sites. If we can't do it, we have to ask somebody else to. And there's lots of things that are a little bit beyond us. So we added it to other partnerships. So we've got a Lincoln Conservation partnership, but we've also making animations with our oral histories that we're hoping to, we've got some embedded in our Matterport model, but if we could bring those into the Curators as well, that would be really fun, because then little quotes from oral histories play. We've had people animating like donkeys and cows for us. It's been amazing. So the Curators team have been fantastic. As somebody who, I'm the most technologically able person in the team, and I don't know a lot about technology. You know, we're a site that really runs on domestic life, daily life. Ask me to do something about cooking and gardening, and I'm there. So the team's been really helpful, because I can come back. I know that if I have any silly tech questions, I can send an email and I'll get a response.
There are no silly tech questions.
There you go.
Tech is silly.
It is silly.
I think this is the thing for us, is getting to a point where we've created a set of features that we're pretty certain people need, and now we're at a point where Sally is saying, we've made some animations, can we add them? And we're like, yes, we'd love to do that. And yeah. I think that without working in open partnership, I'm not sure how we would get to that. So it's really important to us that we are able to, well, I think our intention is that we will mutually benefit. So we want to create new potential footfall for you, increased potential footfall, and hopefully new revenue sources, and sharing the stories that come out of Mrs. Smith's cottage, not only in just in the location where you're based, but also globally. So domestic stories are as important as other stories, and it gives us a brilliant opportunity to share British domestic life with a global audience, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, so am I. Like, because there are so many ideas that we have that otherwise, or without the Curators team, we don't feel like we'd be able to achieve, which sounds really silly. But, you know, we want to create social experiences. That's really the heart of what we do. Our site's so much about people's memories and things that they can relate to in their everyday life, that for us, you know, we've got our Matterport model online, but we don't get to engage with anyone, and Zoom can be a bit, you know. So yeah.
And I think the thing that's really been fascinating for us is we came into this with the mindset of there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach to this. We need to speak to each individual person we're working with, because their goals of what they want to get out of a virtual tour are very different. For some people, it's awareness raising. For some people, it's about access, like it is very much for Sally at Mrs. Smith's. For some people, it's about education. But in many instances, it's about a mix of all of those things. So for every organisation, there's a different kind of blend of the different facets that we need to be able to make accessible, that we need to be able to make operate within that environment. But I think we're running quite close on time now. Is that correct, Nicola? If you give me a nod. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll just kind of wrap up and say that, yeah, we're at the very beginning of our journey, and hopefully you'll hear from us again in the future with Sally talking about this is the project and it's on board now. It will be never be finished because we can keep adding to it, but hopefully we'll be able to give you an update on that not too soon in the future. But I'll hand back now to Nicola, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you all really much. I loved hearing all about curators, and I find the social aspect really exciting, that I could go to visit an exhibition with a friend in London from up here and there, which is great. And I think a really honest point and useful point from Sally around being honest around your own capacity and what you're able to deliver, and that finding the right partner to help you deliver your ideas is so important. So thank you to everybody. Please do get your questions in if you have any for them for the panel session, which is coming up just after we hear from Ellie, who's Innovation Officer at Cornwall Museums Partnership, and Professor Tanya, who's Professor of Digital Games at Falmouth University, who are going to be talking about coastal time tripping. Thank you both.
Thank you, Nicola. Right, I'm just going to get my screen share up and hopefully we'll be good to go. Cool. Right, so hi everyone, I'm Ellie, I'm the Innovation Officer at Cornwall Museums Partnership. Here at CMP, we develop and manage collaborative programs of work which are designed to help museums raise standards, engage with more people, and to be sustainable and resilient. Today, I'm going to be sharing why collaboration has been integral to the success of the WAVE, or as it's publicly known, Coastal Time Tripping project, which we have worked on in partnership with Falmouth University and the Cornwall and Isles of Scilly Local Enterprise Partnership. So to give a quick overview of the project, Coastal Time Tripping has worked with 5 participating museums in Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, aiming to create engaging immersive experiences which diversify the interpretation of the participating museums, attracting new audiences and developing a resilient visitor and heritage economy, whilst embedding digital skills within the museum's communities alongside Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly more broadly. So collaboration is one of Cornwall Museums Partnership's core values. We believe that it is essential to delivering meaningful and impactful programs and projects. The success of Coastal Time Tripping has relied on collaboration with and between 3 core groups: local organisations, the museums, and their communities. Through collaborative practice, we have been able to deliver digital upskilling initiatives, generate new partnerships which will benefit local organisations, provide skills and exposure to strengthen the visitor and heritage economy, all while delivering 5 unique immersive interpretive experiences for the participating museums. So museums are obviously at the heart of this project. There are over 70 museums in Cornwall, many of which are volunteer run, meaning they lack the time and the budgets to focus on digital CPD and digital development. So this provided the project with a challenge to which we believe collaboration was the answer. We wanted to ensure that the staff and the volunteers involved with the project have the knowledge, skills, and confidence to work collaboratively on an agile, immersive, tech-centered project. At the beginning of the project, we set up various workshops designed to deliver these skills. This included user-centered design training, user persona building workshops, and project development meetings, which allowed staff and volunteers to see the development of their experience from the very beginning, meaning they could contribute to the iterative design process. A real highlight of the project for me has been seeing how much the confidence and knowledge surrounding immersive technology has grown within the participating museums. Something which really helped to solidify this was the various research and learning trips that we undertook. We visited the Vista AR conference, Bletchley Park, and the RAF Museum in Hendon to learn about their immersive experiences and to get hands-on with the technology. The learnings from these trips heavily influenced the technology used in the museum's immersive experiences, and they also did wonders to boost the confidence of staff and volunteers, some of whom had little previous knowledge or experience of immersive tech. So
Collaborative practice doesn't need to be complicated. One of our most successful development workshops was the Tea and Tech morning, which we ran at Lowe Museum for the volunteers and trustees. As many of the team were apprehensive about working with immersive technology, we took various virtual reality, augmented reality and mixed reality experiences along with the Falmouth University team to Lowe for them to try out, with a lot of cake and cups of tea to keep the energy levels high as well. The session transformed their perspectives. Many of those who were most nervous now felt excited and engaged and started to bring some really brilliant ideas to the table for their potential experience. So we believe that museums exist to serve their communities. So it's imperative that local communities were part of the collaborative development undertaken by the project. A key programme of delivery in the project was our Immersive Tech Introduction sessions, which aimed to provide digital upskilling to small and medium enterprises across Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. These sessions were hosted mainly by tech experts based in Cornwall, and they were designed specifically to benefit SMEs. From March 2020, we had to redevelop an online training offer. And though this was initially a challenge, it opened up the sessions to an international audience, which proved to us the want and the need for such training in the sector across the globe. By providing this series of training sessions, we were able to boost the skills of over 600 people, providing them with the knowledge to strengthen the visitor economy in the face of rapid technological change. So this is a quote which really speaks to me, and I use it in quite a lot of stuff. But I feel it really sums up the ethos that we've developed through coastal time tripping. So to ensure we created experiences which would impact visitors in a meaningful way, we undertook a series of community consultation sessions to influence the design process. This included working with Truro and Penwith College, Exeter University and Callyworth College students, alongside running drop-in community user testing sessions. This work allowed the visitors and local community members to give insight and feedback, which could then be collated to influence the next iterative step in the design process, meaning a diverse range of voices have contributed to the final immersive experiences. Through coastal time tripping, we have also developed unexpected collaborative partnerships with other heritage organisations, including today's host XpoNorth. After noticing our digital work in Cornwall faced similar challenges to theirs in the Highlands, Nicola got in touch with us, and it became immediately clear that there was a need for wider knowledge and skills sharing between museums and immersive tech developers. Through this, the Museum's Immersive Network was established, aiming to address the power imbalance, bridge the knowledge gap, and develop more partnerships between museums and immersive tech companies. So the vast array of organisations we have worked with through coastal time tripping has changed the course of the project in unexpected and exciting ways, allowing us to conceive innovations we may otherwise not have discovered. So we worked with 6 different immersive technology companies to deliver our Immersive Tech Introductions programme. And as a result, we at CMP have fostered new partnerships. As you can see, our work with Kaiken Collective led to the development of an augmented reality face filter, which takes the user on a time trip of their own. And you can have a go for yourself through the Coastal Time Tripping Instagram page. And please do share them with us if you try it out. We've also have been so excited to see the participating museums putting collaborative practice and creative thinking at the heart of their digital offers now. Both St Agnes Museum and Bude Castle Heritage Centre, who are participating museums on the project, are currently working on an Edge AI project with Cornish chatbot development company Hi9. This is vastly improving and diversifying their digital offer as a direct result of collaborations through coastal time tripping. So collaborating with businesses in the local communities has also been integral to our marketing strategy. Coastal TimeTripping's marketing and social media focuses on celebrating the museums, their communities, and the local businesses or organisations which make up the visitor economy. The website takes a holistic approach to a visitor's coastal time trip, offering information and direct links to other visitor attractions and hospitality businesses in the local areas. This approach comes from a belief that collaborative communities are resilient communities. And we hope that coastal time trippers will delve into the wonderful businesses in the participating communities during their travels. And last but not least at all, finding the right partner. So we have been incredibly lucky to work with Falmouth University on this project. They have provided the development and technology expertise to bring these incredible immersive experiences to fruition. Working with a higher education institution offers a range of benefits to collaborative projects such as this. Having shared values and a shared approach to the project has ensured the museums and their visitors have been put at the heart of every decision that's been made. Equally, the university's drive to learn and share knowledge will only solidify any similar future projects that we undertake. There are many higher education institutions looking to develop collaborative projects, which have access to different grants and funding opportunities than museums, largely for research and development. And these institutions can offer a vast array of expertise. Without Falmouth University's Games Academy team, the project simply wouldn't have been possible. So thank you very much for listening. If you would like to know any more about coastal time tripping or the museum's immersive network, please do get in touch with me on any of these platforms. And I'm also happy to share our coastal time tripping impact report for a deeper look into the impacts of the project. Thank you.
Hi, can you see my screen? Yeah, you can. Okay, I can't see you, see. The other thing was that I wanted to show you my little Harryhausen skeleton that I've got sitting on my desk, which probably means I stop sharing my screen to show it to you. So I really enjoyed the Harryhausen talk because I like skeletons fighting. So thank you for that. Right, okay, so down to business. I'm Tanya Kravinska, and I will share my screen again. Can you see it now, Ellie? Oh, hello?
Yeah, we can see it.
Thank you. Right, you just can't see the whole of it. Okay, right, okay, so I've been working with Cornwall Museum Partnership in various guises for the past 5 years, and we've worked up a really kind of nice collaboration, and I've been incredibly keen to work to bring our experience of making games and making immersive experiences to the heritage sector, because I think it's probably one of the places where we can do amazing things, and that we can really enliven museums in a way that other technologies haven't previously allowed it. There's my front doorbell now. Okay, so on that basis, I thought it'd be useful to talk a bit about what the benefits of research into immersive technology and design might be, particularly for HEI. So why would a higher education institute want to do research for museums? So beyond the obvious kind of curatorial and interpretational elements, there's also the possibility of kind of helping to develop skill sets in the broader economy. So by bringing people into tech, and even if that is quite simply getting people to understand what immersive technology is, or how to use a computer, or what the potential for mobile phones for something like augmented reality, all of those things are things that kind of help bring up the skill set of people. And now universities are charged with basically helping in that challenge to bring people into the digital economy, that these kinds of projects can be very much at the center of that. And that's why it's possible to bring in government funding to support big projects like the WAVE project, for example. Now, of course, collaborative practice means that everybody comes to the table with different languages and different expectations. And most universities are interested in not necessarily the end point of something, but they're interested in developing models or developing applications that kind of ask or answer research questions. So don't be surprised if your higher education researcher isn't interested in asking a research question before anything else, because essentially that's what gets them funded and that's what their modus operandi are. Now that's going to be quite different to what a museum would want. So we've got to find ways of talking to each other around that. And one of the research papers that I've written that's come out of this and other projects with Cornwall Museum Partnership is a paper that kind of tries to develop a framework for conversations and for working practices between these two different sets of people. And of course, you've also got this sort of tech angle as well. It's not just that you're a researcher, but you've also got, you've also immersed in a tech language that other people are not necessarily immersed in. So how do we get that to work? How do we set expectations so that we can all talk about what we want? How can we communicate? And how can we work together? What kind of methods are needed? What workflows? And of course, the other thing is that universities will have very well developed methodologies for critical evaluation, so that we can look very specifically at how the tech that we develop or the applications we develop impacts on not only interpretation but on other aspects of kind of social, cultural interfaces. So I think that universities there may not be marketing forms of evaluation, but they're very good at testing how users might use a piece of technology or how they might navigate a piece of technology. And the great thing about a lot of immersive tech is that you can track things like eye tracking, movement, all of that kind of stuff. So working with immersive technology brings about a whole load of data that we probably wouldn't have had in other contexts, which I think is helpful to everybody. Okay. Are you seeing a slide that says research questions?
Yes, we are.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks. So what kind of research questions, well, these are the kind of research questions that I was asking when I went into the project and my team were asking. So just to kind of read some of these things out. What methods best support immersive co-design? I think this is the key question. We've talked about this. I noticed that quite a few people have been talking about this throughout the other presentations. Is how can we develop these best practice about how to work together? And how should we approach different levels of digital literacy in co-design contexts? I think that's an incredibly important question, because there are different languages in play, and if we are to work together productively, I think that's a key area for more research and for more thought. And how do we balance user-centered design with specialist authorship? I mean, I think a lot of game developers and immersive developers have a different kind of idea about the potential of these technologies than maybe a user-centered kind of approach would suggest. And sometimes that causes kind of issues. So I suspect that a lot of developers have to ameliorate in some way or another their kind of engagement with the creative affordances of this new technology if they want to innovate. Because often user-centered design is is pulling in another direction. So we might just get something that's kind of a reiteration of something that's more familiar. So how do we balance those two things if we're going to put innovation at the centre? So I guess for me, innovation is probably more important than user-centred design, but I'm not saying that any one of those things needs to be out of the picture. They both need to be there, but we need to keep those things in an interesting tension to produce something that's got the wow factor. So what methods work effectively to create a sense of authenticity and incorporation of museum for museum visitors? How do we get past the novelty phase? How do we really make something into a meaningful experience? A lot of people going into VR for the first time are just utterly wowed by it. But how do we actually make that a more meaningful and deep kind of engagement other than simply about novelty? What new engagement and interpretive opportunities do immersive cross-platform technologies offer? I mean, for me, this is a key question as a researcher working in heritage from a digital perspective. I'm interested in how we can widen out the audiences for museums, how we can win the hearts and minds of new audiences, how we can ensure that museums are going to be with us for the next few centuries. And I think it's all about thinking about how we can use online, immersive, location-based apps and technologies in order to ensure that museums continue to have currency and continue to get funding. So how can we best bring the hidden past to life? Now that is a question we can take to co-design. And I think it's a very important question that we all get excited, whoever you are in the co-design team, about bringing the hidden past to life. I think that's the motor that drives the innovation and the enthusiasm and the impetus to actually deliver something that's really amazing. How do we build sense, feeling, thinking, acting, relating into our immersive experiences? How can we build objects into our immersive experience? Where, one of the experiences that we built for Bude, for example, we use a lot of haptics, a big ship's wheel, so that people can actually feel, as they're in the virtual experience, how the ship's wheel would feel quite literally in their hands and how it would kind of play in their hands. And lastly, I would suggest that the WAVE project gave us lots of material and hands-on experience to address these kind of questions. And I feel better able now to be able to speak to those questions in a more informed way by working with the museums directly in a co-design context and with Cornwall Museum Partnership. It's been incredibly fruitful, and I'm really looking forward to future projects, including a project that we've got called Museum World, which hopefully I'll tell you about another time. So what are the kind of benefits of working with a university to museums? So just briefly, being relevant, raising the expectations of new modes of engagement, being inclusive, appealing to non-traditional audiences, being market aware, being there, giving you a real sense of what it was like to have your feet in historical soil, what it was like to be a medieval apothecary, all of those things about the texture and feel and smells and sounds of being back in that space. Being lively, being refreshed, being vital, I think is so important. The energy is really important. Being sustainable, being opportunist, rising to, the increased appetite for online education. How can museums and researchers get into that? And lastly, of course, being resilient for all of us. As a researcher, I have to be resilient in order to bring in research money, and museums are in the same boat. So I want to just show you this slide of Notre Dame, and with your Mrs. Smith project, the use of LiDAR scanning, the use of game engines to build 3D spaces that people can navigate and go through have proved to be historically quite important. And we've seen this with Notre Dame because of the game Assassin's Creed. which is a game that perhaps you wouldn't have expected to have had so much kind of interest to the museum sector right now. But actually, in fact, it's the way that it represented the interior and the exterior of Notre Dame is helping with the restoration project. And as a gamer, I feel delighted that with that bridge, we see him crossing the bridge here, has been done. I also think it's really important, and for me, the most important innovation that's currently in the mix is the use of holographic technologies. We did a project a while back with Porthcurno Telegraph Museum to make an augmented and haptic-driven escape the room experience that multiple people could do. So sorry if so some techies in the audience might like to see this. And the interesting thing about HoloLens, and the new HoloLens in particular, is that you can see the same things from different perspectives. And that means that you can do tasks in the historical and heritage place. And I think that if there is anything that's going to change the way that we're doing things in relation to immersive tech, it will be not augmented reality on your phone, but this much more fully realized augmented reality using a headset. And oddly enough, actually, developing for HoloLens is a lot easier than it is for developing for virtual reality. And so I've got real high hopes for that. And lastly, because I'm an academic, I've got a bibliography. And I'm very willing to send that to anybody who would like to see it. Thank you very much for listening.
That was really interesting. Thank you to you both. I think tea and tech, Ellie, is something that I'll need to embrace up here. I think that would go down really well. And that quote you shared about the diversity of viewpoints in museums was fascinating as well. But thank you, Tanya. And I'd just like to mention, as we were talking so much about university and museum partnerships, that in Scotland we have Interface, which is an organisation that is here to help any organisation, but heritage and museum ones, since that's the session for today, who would be interested in forming collaborations with the university. So please do connect with me on the social app if you'd like to find out more about that. But for now, I'd like to open up to questions. We have a few coming in, and hand over to my colleague Amy Shakespeare, who will help chair this session. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Nicola. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Amy Shakespeare. I'm the Innovation Manager at Cornwall Museums Partnership, as Nicola mentioned. Really delighted to be hosting this panel this afternoon. If everyone is happy that contributed to pop their cameras back on. And we've got a few questions coming in from the audience at the moment. But I wanted to start off with some sort of broader ones, and I won't come to everyone on the screen because we could be here for quite some time. So if you have something that you would particularly like to say or answer, maybe just chip in or wave at me and I'll come to you. The first thing that I wanted to start off by asking is, what do you wish you'd known before starting the projects that you'd talked about? Not COVID, because we'd all like to have had pre-warning about that, I'm sure. But other things that you wish you'd known before starting the project. Does anyone want to come in on that?
Sorry, we're in the same room at the moment. I think that knowing kind of different expectations of the audience was something that we really found out over the course of the project. So the expectations that we had were completely different. And I think the initial goals of the project were based on expectations about who would engage with immersive tech. And actually through our research in the project, we realized it's totally incorrect. And younger audiences who have more experience of that technology have far higher expectations than, say, an older audience who haven't experienced or aren't digital natives. Then their expectations are lower, or they are more engaged and excited by those experiences.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ellie. Sorry if there was a bit of feedback there. I put my headphones in. Anyone else on what you would have liked to have known before you started your project? I guess sort of to help the audience out if anyone's thinking about embarking on a collaborative digital project.
I think the thing to do is to meet with your co-designers as often as you possibly can, because there'll be a lot of fear and a sense, especially in our context where there was a lot of volunteer, a lot of sort of non-professional museum staff, and I think the tea and tech model was absolutely brilliant, because it actually meant that you were talking to each other as human beings rather than a bunch of us techies going, you know, talking about Unity and plugins and whatnot. So I think making sure that you provide a whole more than you think you do of events where you get to know one another as people before you even get to the point of the co-design is really important.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point. This next question is a bit of a asking you to be quite open and honest, and hopefully you're happy to do that today. But obviously the session's all about trying to encourage museums to feel confident in working with tech partners and universities. So I wondered if any of you would be happy to speak about what maybe has been the biggest challenge about collaborating with one another. Anna, maybe if I could start with you from your perspective.
I'll put me on the spot there. It wasn't so much a challenge in this particular partnership actually, because I think we were all just very enthused about the project, and so we sort of came with some meeting of minds in a way. But from sort of our other projects that we've done with Smartify, I think there's a sort of from the tech side, it's often you're up against museum staff who might not even really know haven't tried the experience or don't really know what you're suggesting, and so they sort of, there's a knee-jerk reaction to say, oh no, I don't think it's for us, before actually having really even used or tried the experience. And often actually people get in touch with us at Smartify and say, we want an app, and I'm like, great, what do you like about it? And they haven't used it, they just have set up a call without having used it because they've heard of us. So those are sort of interesting challenges to navigate around when people haven't actually sort of tried the experiences or don't necessarily know what they're talking about. So you have to really start at the beginning. But then on the same side, I think it's really helpful what Lauren was saying about having people who can kind of speak the language of museums, because I often think that tech people as well just make assumptions about everyone knows what an AR experience is or a mixed reality experience, and they don't. And so there is a bit of sort of just making sure that you're using terms that everybody understands and actually taking it back and saying, this is what image recognition technology does. This is how you integrate an AR experience. It doesn't have to be a full animation of, the whole history of, it can just be one object. Or so just kind of going through those things. I think those are some of the challenges that we've had in other partnerships, but in this one actually it was great working with Phil and Kev.
Emma, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I just totally agree with that. One of the things that we do at work, and I did it whilst I was talking, and I've been kicking myself ever since, is try and avoid acronyms. So I said that we've made an MVP, and as far as all of you are concerned, you have no concept of what that means. It means a minimum viable product. So trying really hard not to use acronyms and shorthand, and that goes for both sides. So in museum terms, you have shorthand that you may not be aware of, because you possibly don't talk to people outside your sector, and we're absolutely chronic for using words that are kind of meaningless. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is create a glossary of terms, and I think that's going to be like painting the fourth bridge. We're never going to finish that. That's an ongoing thing, because we tend to invent words in the tech sector. which makes it even harder. So yeah, shared language, and then also being able to shift gears. So when you're talking to somebody who has some technical knowledge, shifting up a gear so that you can get to the point faster rather than explaining basic terms like from the get-go. So just that kind of like being able to shift out of, oh, we're not doing basic, you know what we're talking about. Oh, okay, now we can talk about something a bit more advanced.
Yeah, I think those are really key points. Lauren, did I see that you've got your hands up? This is very helpful. Lauren.
Hi, yeah, I would agree with Emma on the taking it back, and kind of I have reached a point with the team in the program, so I just go, look, idiot proof this for me, explain it to me like I'm not very bright, I won't be offended. And they start explaining it, I go, no, you need to go back further than that, you just used a word I don't understand. And the thing that I found hardest at the beginning, having worked in a sector for quite a while and got to a place where I felt really confident and comfortable with my museums knowledge, it's been a long time since I've been outside of my comfort zone and had to deal with not really knowing, and not even not really knowing nothing. So just kind of getting out of my own head that I'm not going to be judged by Emma or the rest of the team or anybody I've spoken to in the tech world when I don't know it, because that's fine, and there's not ever an expectation of you have to know it all. So sometimes it's just getting out of my own way to be able to go, I don't get this, can you explain? And that's always been massively helpful for me.
I think that's a real learning curve that a lot of people from museums have to go on, but as Emma and Anna have kind of mentioned, it works both ways, and tech people that want to work with museums and heritage also have to go on that learning curve of how that sector works. So that's how I like to sort of see it. Sally, come to you now.
Yeah, following on from the language side of things, because I'm very new to my career in the first place, I'm still, in my brain, I'm very set out to learning new things. So I just have Google up every time someone speaks to me. I'm not even like joking from any sector, because, you know, I'm currently learning all the gardening side of things. So every time I'm talking to a gardener, I have to like type in, what's this flower? Do you say that? So I'm not afraid of learning, and that's really important. But the thing that with Mrs. Smith's cottage and technology that we were really nervous about, and how to work technology in, is that the story is so homely. And not that Mrs. Smith was completely devoid of technology, she had a 1970s TV, but that's as far as it got. And I would like to have, you know, technology and things that we can play with and using digital in that way. But I'm also aware that it needs to be done sensitively, because there's this sort of vibe that the cottage has it's like your grandma's house, exactly like your grandma's house. That's how it feels to walk into it. And we were really hesitant that using too much digital or not using it sensitively, it would look a bit gimmicky and you wouldn't get the point across very well. So hopefully working with the curators team, it seems to be a good way to do it, because you get that social interaction, which is what people expect when you go into your grandma's house.
I really want to come now. It sounds very inviting. Any challenges, Ellie and Tanya, with the coastal time tripping project?
I guess there's you're coming from two very different perspectives. So as everyone said, kind of with the language and the knowledge, you've got different sets of expertise coming together. But I also think that having that kind of shared goal makes things easier. So we have the perspective of kind of the museums having the experience and the impact on the community. Falmouth Uni have that as well, but also the research aspect and the impact of that. And that's kind of got a different level of importance, I suppose, than it does to CMP. So I think that can be a challenge unless it's navigated successfully and the partnership is strong.
I agree with that. But I feel the most important thing is to have a methodology for working with your partners, and that means a set of scheduled meetings with clear goals happening regularly, with a sense of progress. So and so I think actually some really kind of clear guidelines about when you're going to deliver this, what the expectations are from both sides in relation to that. So a clear timeline of when things are going to be delivered, that kind of stuff, with the caveat, because and explaining to everybody involved that when you're creating innovative tech experiences, you're not just buying them off the peg, you're doing something that is totally on the fly and by the seat of your pants. So if I can just put the plea from the tech perspective, is that if you want an app that's off the peg, that is, you know that it's going to work, then, but there's no innovation there. So if you're doing something that's truly co-designed, there are areas of uncertainty and knowability, and that things can go wrong just because someone says, I don't like that animation, I want this animation in there. You do that, and then it messes up a whole load of other things. So actually, I think what we did in the OMIS is we wrote out a kind of a sheet about how we work as developers, how we use sprints and agile, and we don't really know where we're going and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's really important so that people feel that because I think they'll think that you're an authority and an expert and you can just pull this thing like a rabbit out of the hat. And of course you can't, especially with co-design. It's all live, it's all emergent. And so I think everybody needs to understand that, and that's really hard for people who are trying to do PR and know when to put things in. And anyway, so for me, that's where all of the little bits of tension and stuff kind of happen. You'll find that out really fast if you're doing it, but I think kind of having that up front and then reminding people along the way, and then having a timeline and when you meet and everything will kind of help with all of that kind of grungy unknownness.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly why we wanted to bring all these people together and have both perspectives, because I think it's really useful for tech partners to hear sort of feedback from museums and vice versa, and to sort of see how we can work better together. Phil, come to you.
Hi, I'm just following up on the points already made, and I think the main thing for us, but apart from everybody on the project being massively enthusiastic about it, which was a big boost for it because everyone wanted to work on it, and that was great. But what came with that was organizational buy-in, because quite often, especially with anything technological, we've had in the past where there will be people within your organization who will just say, no, you can't do that. I know that won't work. And until you try and expand and you push those things, you don't find out. So you then get stuck in a kind of stasis where you got a certain thing and you can't move beyond that and you stagnate. And I think it's important that organization, you have those champions within the department or in different parts of the organization even, who can not shout those voices down, but make an authoritative claim and a case for moving things forward. And I think that was really important for us on this project and on other projects.
Yeah.
And also our main project was Wi-Fi. Weirdly, our own buildings were our main project because they're so old. They have 6-foot thick walls in it. It's really difficult to get Wi-Fi in some of the rooms. But apart from that, I think having buy-in was the main thing that helped us along the way.
Classic museum problem there. We've got Wi-Fi, but it might not work. Emma, you put your hand up.
I muted because my kid came home. Just to that point is it's not a problem that we've experienced with Sally, but with other partners, is making sure that the people that you're talking to have also spoken to the IT department. So IT departments have opinions about immersive tech and also like emergent technology. So one of the things that we're struggling with currently is getting out of the loop of being able to demonstrate what we know is going to be an exciting thing to the people that we want to get all the stakeholders to buy in. And to get across what we do, it's easiest to do a demo, but we distribute our platform through a platform called Steam on desktops, and the number of local authorities, universities, and other organisations that will not even allow their users to just download an app onto their work laptops or PCs is substantial. So we're starting to design around that, and I do wish we'd known that and thought about that a little bit more carefully in the beginning, because whilst the core of our experience is the most exciting on a VR headset, it's still not a ubiquitous technology like mobile phones and laptops. So we want it to work across the board, and we've made it work across the board, but we're still struggling to get it onto people's computers. So chatting with the IT department ahead of time is a big top tip for me.
Yeah, I love that one, really important. And we've got quite a few questions coming in from people watching, so thank you very much, keep posting them, but I'm going to move to those now. So we've got one from Leslie who says, museums and heritage sites often leverage their sites by having their immersive experiences on site when possible. AR tours or LBE, VR, etc. Any tips on how remote or inaccessible sites can best utilize immersive and engage people? Does it come down to the marketing of the experience? Who wants to come in on that? Oh, Emma.
I will do, but I won't stop. That's the problem. Yes, is the simple answer. The marketing is essential. So I think I've worked on projects throughout my career that have been considered to be marketing, but often the interactive element is part of the content. It's not part of the marketing, and it in and of itself is not going to bring people. So you need to be embedded with the technology partner as part in the marketing effort. So our marketing plan, we've been asked a lot about our audience acquisition plan, and at the moment that's very much based on the hope that we can pull in lots of global partners and then use their networks, and we get cross marketing. But everybody needs to put a lot of effort into the marketing of the content, and it in the technology in and of itself is not going to bring people to your door.
Emma, I'd just like to underline that if you, for example, if you've got location-based apps for phones, nobody will ever find them on the App Store. Well, and also trying to get them on the App Store as well isn't easy, especially with Apple, because people there has to be a developer account that's paid for yearly, etc., etc. So you've got to get over that hurdle, and then of course, there's millions of apps, so no one is going to find your app just in ordinarily. So you need a really strong publicity campaign and lots and lots of signposting about how people can get to your app, particularly if it's location based.
I think the marketing of immersive experiences is really difficult, actually. Phil, how have you kind of approached that with your exhibition?
Well, I mean, fortunately, we have a marketing department, and we have a fairly for Scotland anyway, we've got a fairly large reach. We can't compete with a lot of, so Tate and organisations like that worldwide, but we did have a marketing budget for the show, so we were able to put a lot of effort into it. Because Smartify worked on site, our SVS team were actually crucial and in onboarding people, and it's one of the ways that actually COVID worked in our favour, because we had people queuing. So we have a captive audience to let people know about the app before they even go into the exhibition. And we found that the take-up of the app has been much higher than it had been previously. And also, obviously, Anna's able to promote it as well through her channels. And we had marketing, which, following on from the back of the skeletons around the city, we just had really good assets. So we had a viral marketing campaign. Well, not viral. We had a marketing campaign that was very successful here in Scotland and Edinburgh, in which we put Harryhausen creatures in environments around the city. So we had the Kraken attacking the Forth Rail Bridge, and we had the skeletons around the city. So being creative with the marketing was good. We were lucky because we had such really good assets to help us.
But I think that's a really good point, in that, especially for museums, we might look at a project and we think we need this much to do the tech element, but actually it's all about the marketing element and the legacy support and all of that kind of thing, that I think through Min we've kind of had quite a few conversations about all those additional elements that you need to put into the budget that we don't initially think of. I've got a question. Oh, sorry, Anna.
I just add one thing to that, which is just that, like, it's kind of what Phil said in terms of like the quality of the experience. Obviously, like with Harryhausen, like there's, you know, all these super fans and it's an amazing content anyway. But with whatever you're doing, I mean, everybody's heard of the term like content marketing now, but it's that idea of offering a satisfying and a complete experience on every channel, not saying, here's an advert for something over here, here's an advert for something over here, like just making sure that whatever you put on Instagram, or like the skeleton graphic that we've made with Playdead, like that's just a satisfying experience in and of itself. And then if there's another experience, fine, but there's no point just saying, well, you know, go to our experience here. I think everything needs to, you know, have a full experience, have a whole narrative journey within it, even if it's very short.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I've got a question specifically for curators from Malcolm. Is curators viable for temporary exhibitions or art college degree shows?
It will be. At the moment, we're really early on our journey. So, like, underpinning what Tanya was saying before, we're predominantly partnering with people who already have 3D assets and 360 photography, 360 film. What we will do through our development is effectively create a tool so that hopefully we can cut ourselves out of the whole process and effectively let museum digital departments manage this themselves, or individuals. We've already spoken to somebody about doing a degree show, and I love the idea of that, because one of the things I love doing more than anything is going to see degree art shows, because it's brilliant. But the levels of complexity, we're just not quite there yet. Within the next year, potentially, yes.
To add to what Emma said as well, when we talk about the pipeline that we're building, so that, you know, in future we don't have to be as involved in the integration and planning and bringing all of these aspects and digital assets on board. That's something that we're hoping to get to, but we won't ever completely remove ourselves, because I think from my museum background, if I hear we'll remove ourselves from it and you can do it, I go, well, I'm not capable of that. There will always be a support network in existence where we're able to go so far and hold the hand through and support through that process, but it's never going to be well, now you do it. And I think that's one of the things where my museum background and Emma's tech background, and I'm kind of able to go, actually, up to a point, we don't want to get rid of you. We need to know that there is there that will keep on being present throughout.
Yeah, that links through really nicely to a question from James, which is, what is the current life expectancy of digital projects? And in particular for the Harryhausen exhibition, will the digital platform be used for legacy engagement for NGS / the Harryhausen Foundation. Does anyone from that project want to come in on that?
Well, at the moment, the app is due to have the same life as the exhibition and the content in terms of that. So that would be very much for a discussion between the Harryhausen Foundation and the galleries. I'd very much like to see it continue. And I think one of the reasons why Ray Harryhausen set up the foundation in the first place was because he'd seen his collections and some of the collections like his spread across the world and broken up, and what he wanted to do was keep it all together so that the collection could be used as an educational tool, as something that could encourage young animators to in their craft, just as he'd been encouraged by Willis O'Brien when he was a young man. So I think from that point of view, I'd be really keen for it to continue so that it could have that function and encourage people to share in Ray's story, which is a really inspiring one of a young artist who was supported by his parents at a young age and became a world-renowned special effects artist.
Yeah, that's really, I have to come to that exhibition. I mean, it just looks absolutely incredible. Ellie, I know there's a range of technologies in coastal time tripping. Do you maybe want to speak to the first part of that question in terms of sort of digital life expectancy of the project?
Yeah, so I think in terms of coastal time tripping, I mean, the experiences that have been generated, we have 2 virtual reality, 1 augmented reality, and then 2 apps. And I think something that we were really aware of is that short digital life expectancy and how we could set up the experiences and work with the museums to improve the longevity, both in terms of the technology itself, but also in terms of staff skills and knowledge and volunteers, places with relatively high turnover of staff, or especially with the current circumstances, volunteers who may not be able to come in. There needs to be an approach that puts those people first in terms of their understanding and their ability to work with the technology and maintain it. So we're kind of taking that approach by providing a year's ongoing support once the project's over, and that will be on-call tech support for the museums to access whenever they need for the year after the project ends. We also kind of wanted to work with technology that was as up to date as possible, so that in terms of the hardware, the longevity is there. So I think the benefit, say, of the apps or the AR experience, possibly over the virtual reality experiences, are that they have more longevity and more adaptability to be put on new platforms.
Brilliant. Emma, I think you put your hand up next. I'll come to you.
Yeah, I think genuinely about a few years ago, I would have said the longevity of an app is about 2 to 3 years. Like the hardware, the way that hardware advances and the way that the software has to advance to catch up, it's very difficult to say that anything is maintainable beyond those 3 years. And I think if you were to think of, instead of thinking about an app, thinking about a lens. So you've got, this is a lens, there's no other one. This is a lens. My ability to see to see content through these lenses is driven by software, and that software can only be expected to last for a certain amount of time. What you can do as organisations is to make sure that the stuff that I'm looking at through those lenses is always up to date. So having digital assets that are up to date, that have as much metadata attached to them as physically possible. So all the stories, all of the like, where is this captured? Why is it relevant? Why do we have it? Why is it here? Who made it? Or who owns it? And all of that information, I think that has much more longevity than each individual project. One of the reasons why we approach this as a platform is we want to be able to drop projects and content into it but we're going to approach it from a long form point of view. And if all of those assets that you diligently captured are kept up to date and relevant, then that helps like buff out that 3-year rolling gap.
Sally, what are your views on this?
Well, for me, as you know, within Mrs. Smith's cottage in the department that I'm in at North Kesteven, I'm there till the end of the Heritage Lottery Fund project, and then I'll hand over to my colleagues, and you know, I might be able to stay, I might not, but I need to know that we've got it working and it's in place for long enough for me to be able to leave, and it for not to just be on one person anymore. So for us, in terms of longevity, really it's training and hopefully getting some lovely younger volunteers in to come and help us out. It'd be great. Yeah, that's my main concern in terms of longevity, is not having somebody that knows what to do. But yeah,
I think you've hit upon a really important point around staff turnover, and kind of even within the projects, or like you say, if there's a specific funded project and then that person leaves, they've got to know what to do with it and how to turn it off and on again and all that fun stuff with tech. I'm getting a little bit of feedback from XpoNorth webinar room 3, so I don't know if they can mute themselves, whoever's on that line. Thank you. I am aware that we're rapidly running out of time and this has gone really quickly. I'd quite like to ask you how you think that we can better build confidence for museums working with tech or universities and vice versa, and what each kind of every sector can kind of do to improve that confidence. Ellie?
I think sessions like this are amazing, where people can share their experiences. I think honesty within that conversation and normalizing not knowing things or admitting that you don't have a clue what VR is, but you want to find out more. And I think normalizing those conversations and admitting that no one is an expert in every sector will kind of increase how comfortable people are with kind of brokering those partnerships, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Anyone else on that, or maybe a piece of advice that you would give to a museum or a tech company looking to work with the other?
I think it's really good if you want to work with a university, or you're interested in working with a university, that you can have a kind of a tacit agreement to work together on things, so that when a university is kind of thinking about a research bid, that they will think of your museum in relation to that research bid. So Falmouth University has a sort of a compact with Cornwall Museum Partnership, which basically says, it's kind of like we're friends and we want to mutually support each other. So I think probably what you need to do is that if you find a research professor with an interest in digital heritage, and there are plenty of us around, then approach them and start talking about the possibilities of working together. You don't necessarily need to go with them for a project, because they might know of particular kind of funding bids that are open currently, that you can tailor something around. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't be scared to work with universities, because actually universities are charged with working with businesses and charities and cultural institutions now in a way that we never used to be, actually. So don't be afraid to approach people, and then see if you can get some kind of agreement going. Not necessarily. So it's not just project focused, so that the project's over and that's the end of the relationship.
I think that's great. Don't be scared. I think if anyone goes away with anything today, don't be scared of each other. is a good one. Sally, you've got your hand up.
Similar on the don't be scared theme, if you're interested in the work someone else is doing, I've learnt there is absolutely no harm in just asking questions, because that's where I started with curators. I'm working on other projects, mostly with artists, where I've just sent an email that's gone, this is a bit of a weird question, but can you make? And everybody loves that. If you start a conversation with, I've got a weird question or a weird item that I want you to make, can you do it? You'll find a partnership through that somewhere. If it's not the person you initially engaged with, they'll know somebody else. And just don't be scared of asking questions, because how else are you going to find anything out?
Yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get. I think that's a really good point. Anna, any advice from you for either party?
Maybe controversial, but I would actually say don't build custom tech things yourself. I think that partner with platforms like Curators or like Smartify, because I think museum have expertise in storytelling, and that is really the expertise. You have the narrative, you know how to tell the stories best. But if you're going to try and build like a custom platform or solution to deliver it, you're going to waste a lot of money, and the user experience is probably going to be quite bad and not tested with, you know, diverse groups and for accessibility and for all those things. So I would say find platforms, find people who've already built things, and focus on content creation and storytelling.
That's brilliant. And Phil, maybe if I could give the last piece of advice to you, unless anyone else has any more.
No, I mean, just like to follow up on what Anna said as well there. I think that the thing about going with something that already exists is there's a lot of more comfort involved in your organization. We were already working with Smartify. We knew what we were doing from the get-go. So it was I mean, my role was basically to do that, to put those stories in there. And we did that with much more confidence. And the other thing I would say about that is that in terms of audiences, it's been particularly good for us because we built the content for Smartify with a visitor in mind, so a visitor in the exhibition. And actually, once the pandemic hit, one of the things you learned straight away is that all organizations around the world suddenly realized their digital part was quite important, which was great. But on the other side, you've been bombarded with things. But one of the things that meant was that actually the worldwide reach of Smartify meant that we had an audience that we were reaching that were far beyond our gallery walls, which is really vital in a time when nobody could come to the gallery, nobody who lived beyond a 3-mile radius of Edinburgh could come and see us, which was quite a challenge when you're running a large museum. But having that global reach that was basically already there was massively important for us and was a big boost in terms of the global engagement with our content.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think what's come through for all of the presentations and the discussion is just the enthusiasm and passion of all partners, museum, tech, universities, which is really brilliant. And I think that we at MIN see that collaboration is key for the future. We want to do more events like this and just build confidence, as Nicola said. And yeah, just thank you so much. I think it's such an exciting time to be in both sectors, you know, especially after such a difficult year. This feels like a really inspirational and hopeful event. So I'll hand back to Nicola, but thank you.
Hi, I think we're just about to go, but just to say thank you very much to everyone today for your time and your talks, for being so generous and sharing so openly with us all, and for taking the time to answer everybody's questions today. We'll take away some messages of not being scared, asking questions and seeking out those confident partnerships into the future. So thank you all very, very much for today.